Lowe's knows that taking on more projects should be rewarding. That's why loyalty members get more every day with rewards for every home or business purchase. Plus, shop weekly member deals and get access to free standard shipping. So what are you waiting for? Join free today. Lowe's, we help, you save. Loyalty program subject to terms and conditions. Detail at lowes.com/terms, subject to change.
Elf Beauty is a huge success story. But did you know they believe their success is in part due to the diversity of their board? And the data backs them up. The Not So White Paper, created in collaboration with North Carolina A&T, connects the dots between diverse corporate boards and positive results, which can include a higher return on equity, better price-to-earnings ratios, and even fewer discrimination lawsuits. Read it yourself at elfbeauty.com/notsowhitepaper.
This week on the Happy Half Hour.
Bryce said, hey, it's great to be able to work with the same set of people, but we also know we don't get to start from there. We've got to continue the work, continue to build, continue to grow. But Dave talked about with Bryce having that kind of attitude, they're able to open things up in the offense.
Touchdown, Carolina!
It's time for the Happy Half Hour, presented by Southern Star, an official bourbon of the Carolina Panthers. Here are your hosts, Darin Gant and Kassidy Hill.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Happy Half Hour. Of course, it's Masters Week, so am I supposed to say, hello, friends? Welcome.
What's your golf?
No, we're not. This is football. This is a football podcast. We'll get to all
Really?
the golf.
I've been talking about the wrong thing this whole time.
Yeah, I know what. We are going to do the footballs here on the Happy Half Hour. And we hadn't done this in a couple weeks. I feel like we've let our sponsor down because this is, in fact, the Happy Half Hour, presented by Southern Star, an official bourbon of the Carolina Panthers. Celebrate the spirit of the Carolinas. And while they're doing their little golf thing with the azaleas and whatever they have there, I think I could sit on the porch this afternoon with a glass of Southern Star and just unwind.
I was about to say, we might not have done an ad read, but something tells me you weren't truly letting them down as a consumer.
Well, it's quite a product. I am a fan of the Southern Star, where they are a friend of the program and a friend of the Carolina Panthers. So we celebrate the spirit of the Carolinas together. So anyway, it is draft time.
It is draft time. We are knocking on the door. I think today we're recording on a Thursday.
We are Armani Edwards days away from the NFL draft. 14 days away. So it
is coming on down the pipe.
We were Marvin McNutt days away yesterday. Today we are Armani Edwards. I don't want to give it all away, but I do believe tomorrow we are going to be Ken Walter days away.
Do you have one for every day?
I do.
Is that your list right there?
I have a list of candidates.
I won't spoil it for the listeners,
That's
but
right.
I am peeping at your list.
That's right. No peeking. It's just like draft boards. Don't peek at my draft board of days until the draft ideas. But it's that time. 2 weeks from the draft, and it's going to be an exciting time. For starters, we can reveal, this is a Panthers.com exclusive, that you, Kassidy G. Hill, will be on the scene in Green Bay for this draft. That's kind of a home game for you.
It is. I get to a friend texted me, and he was like, "Can we go get dinner?" And I was like, "I just want to go get coffee from this one place." That's my highest on my priority list, behind, of course, talking to our new draft pick. But very excited. We'll get to be there with the first round pick, whoever it may be, wherever they may be picked. Get to talk to them right after they hear their name called by the commissioner. That's always an exciting moment for a guy. It's like that's the moment, I think, when they walk out on stage and the commissioner holds up the jersey with their name on it, which I watched a little vignette yesterday. Did you know they have that done in less than 90 seconds?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's impressive. They're a well-oiled machine back there with those jerseys and hats. I think when they finally see their name on the jersey, that's when everything hits them. So to be able to talk to them right there in that moment afterwards is going to be special, to be a part of something, to be there when they realize their lifelong dreams. And we're going to have a lot of content for you on Panthers.com coming from Green Bay. And I believe some people will stick around for the second and third days as well, because, the NFL always tries to make those special to keep people watching.
That's right.
So got some players, former players, fans announcing picks. And so we're going to have all the coverage for
Our
you.
International Fans of the Year, who we talked to on our last episode. They were Kai and Moritz are going to be on the scene. You'll have to connect with those guys while you're up there. Now, have you been on site for a draft previously?
I have never been on site for a draft. You know, we had Trevor Sycamore in this week to do some draft coverage, and I asked him that too because he's been doing draft stuff a lot longer than I have. And he said, "No, I've never been on site." And because here's what I think a lot of people don't realize: the site of the draft is where the attention goes for the media for the length of a pick, and then everything else happens in a stadium.
Right.
And so, you know, whoever is picked in that first round Thursday night, they'll be here in Bank of America Stadium by late Friday morning.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, everyone that's picked day 2, day 3, you know, usually day 2 people are guys that could have been first round, kind of were fringe, and they're still around. People that are on site, meaning for day 2. And so everything really kind of happens here at the stadium.
Right. That's why I tell people, and people are always amazed, in 30 years of doing this, I've never once been to where the draft is. Yeah. And I don't know that I want to because
it would be cool as a fan.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's an incredible event, but in terms of the work, I'm just kind of conditioned to somewhere about middle of the day Thursday, after I've got up early, done my morning stuff, taken a nap, sometime middle of the day Thursday, coming into a windowless room and then leaving on Saturday
night. Exactly.
You know, just kind of never seeing the sun for a couple of days and immersing yourself in what's going on there. And that's just kind of been my experience about this thing. So it is, it's going to be a wild time. I'm looking forward to, hopefully the Carolina Panthers selection is among those players. We're anticipating that announcement from the league any day now. This is kind of the time when that usually comes out. Yeah. But I'm hoping our guy is there in Green Bay, so you'll be there and be among the first to greet them because you are, of course, one of our great ambassadors here of the brand.
I have a T-shirt that says that.
The brand?
No, a great ambassador.
I was going to say.
I actually don't. I feel like I should, though.
Yeah, it's okay. But it is. It's going to be a fascinating weekend and it's going to be a busy weekend. Carolina Panthers have, of course, as you know, 9 picks in this draft, 8 in the first 5 rounds. And if we learned anything from Dan Morgan and Brant Tillis's first draft together last year, is that those 9 picks might not be the same 9 or amount they execute.
What are the chances? I'm going to give it like a 1 in 1,000 odds that they stick with all 9 exactly where they're at.
Yeah, that seems like the least likely scenario. Of course, there's no gambling here at Bushwood, and I never slice. Yeah, they are going to move around the board. I think the one thing I've picked up having known Dan Morgan from the time he was drafted, I mean, basically 25 years ago almost, it feels like. God, it has been 25 years. How old am I? The answer is 1 million. Dan is very direct and to the point.
You've known Dan Morgan longer than you've known your children.
It's true. It's true. My children didn't start showing up till 2002. Dan Morgan showed up in my life in 2001. And, when he met his wife, Ashley, I remember Dan's dad telling me, Dan's wife is from, the North Carolina mountains, the high country up there. And I remember Dan's dad telling me one day in Spartanburg, he said, "You get a kick out of Ashley. She sounds like you." And Dan's dad's got a great Philly accent. But, Dan is very direct and to the point. So when he tells you, oh, yeah, we could trade back, I mean, Dan is prepared for all these scenarios because, A, nobody likes disappearing into that film room and watching tape of prospects quite like Dan Morgan does. But he's worked this in his head to the point where he knows what he would want to do at 8, pending what happens in front of him. He knows what he would do at hypothetically 15, 25, at all these different points through the draft because he's kind of worked through the values of these things. And I think that, in a perfect world, would they have something between 8 and 57? They would. They're without their own second rounder, but they do have the Rams.
Right.
Would they like to find something between point A and point B? Maybe so, but
there's enough capital there to play with.
I think there's a world of opportunities. But the one thing I think people anticipate out of this thing is this is going to be a defense-heavy draft.
For sure.
Maybe not all defense, because if they don't come out of this weekend with a wide receiver, probably somebody who is fast, that would be a little bit of a surprise to me. But this, I think it's reasonable to suggest it's going to lean heavily defense because, they were kind of last in the league.
And Dan has told us that.
And he's been very upfront about saying that. He's so direct. And that's, like I said, that's the thing about Dan. When he tells you, yeah, we got to fix this defense, believe him because he's not a BSer. He is very direct and to the point.
And it works in his favor that this is such a defensive-heavy draft. Like, so many of the defensive units are deep. I mean, gosh, that edge unit is deeper than we've seen in 10 years.
Right. No doubt. And
safety's deep.
And, it hits at a lot of the positions they need. Mm-hmm. If they come out of this thing with multiple pass rushers, with another defensive lineman, with another safety, these are all things that aren't going to surprise anybody. I think there are needs across the board that they're going to look at a couple of different areas, but that's obviously the priority. And, this week, one of the things that's been reported, in a lot of places, this is the week they knocked out all their visits.
Right, all their 30 visits.
Yeah, and somewhere along the way, I don't know how this happened, but somewhere along the way, these started getting called top 30 visits. Uh-huh. I think people were getting nostalgic for Casey Kasem or something.
Or you know what it sounds like is in college recruiting, you have top 5 visits. And those are your officials, and then you can take an unofficial, which is a kind of, I guess, the equivalent of the Zoom calls. Mm-hmm. And with an official, so a top visit, the school completely pays for you to come visit.
Okay.
An unofficial, you have to pay to go visit, but you're welcome to come visit. So I think when people say top 30, in my head, I'm hearing top 5.
Right.
And I think people got it confused with college recruiting visits, but it is a little different.
As someone who has actively avoided all high school recruiting coverage in my life,
that's smart. Don't put that juju in your life.
Yeah,
that bad juju.
I did not know that, so I've learned a new thing here today. But no, this is, if you look at it, and a lot of the names have been reported, many of them have not. But if you looked across the board at the guys who were here in the building, it's all over the board. Mm-hmm. It's first-round guys, it's second-round guys, third-round guys, and on deeper into day 3 of the draft. Because a lot of what they're doing, I mean, yes, you want to find out if it's somebody you're curious about with the number 8 pick.
Right.
You want to know more about that guy. You want to get them on the board, see how they learn, see how they retain information. Teams will do things like introduce material to a guy at the combine, and then when they come in for a visit, say, hey, remember when we caught you in Indianapolis?
Oh, that's
we were
interesting.
talking about this, this, and this. Part of it is just seeing how people retain information, mm-hmm. and they want to see what makes the guys tick. This is a very important interview mm-hmm. opportunity in terms of they had their local pro day this week as well, and there wasn't a lot of on-field stuff other than some punters, and you caught up with one of those guys, and we'll have more on that later, but mostly this was an interview opportunity, mm-hmm. a chance to get to know some of these guys better and figure out what makes them tick.
Because at this point, you pretty much know everything you need to know about this guy from film. That's football players' favorite saying, turn on the film, turn on the game tape. And so it's more about how do they jive with our coaching system? How do they jive with how we like to coach guys? This is a chance a lot of times. I don't know if people realize how much the players are in the building this time of year too. So this is a chance to see them walking down the hall and run into Derek Brown. And, do they listen to him? Do they understand, the respect he garners as a locker room leader? It's a chance to see all of those little things that you're never going to see on film.
Mm-hmm. No doubt. And we'll have an opportunity. We're going to get deeper into that as we get through into next week. I mean, the other thing that's going to happen coming up soon is start of the off-season program.
April 21st.
There are some guys knocking around the building. You mentioned Derek. He's here practically every day, working out, coming back from last year's knee injury. But on the 21st is when the off-season program begins in earnest. Guys will be back in here working out and stuff. That's it's wild.
The day after my birthday, if anybody wants to bring me a cupcake and we'll celebrate accordingly.
There you go. Happy start of the new league year, new off-season program, Kassidy. We'll get
new Kassidy, new Panthers.
We'll get everybody to sing for you or something down there.
Oh, don't do that.
But it's wild because last year this started 2 weeks earlier.
Yeah.
And it's because Dave Canales is a second-year coach now, and only first-year coaches get those bonus 2 weeks. That's been one of the things in the last little bit that's it's almost dawning on you. You realize the passage of time. they're going into that second year. And listening to Dave talk about that last week at the owners meeting down in Florida, he talked about the lessons learned from year one to year two and how you carry over certain things. Bryce talked about it a little bit. If you saw on Panthers.com, we had some comments from him out at his camp in Los Angeles. Bryce said, hey, it's great to be able to work with this same set of people, but we also know we don't get to start from there. We've got to continue to work, continue to build, continue to grow. But Dave talked about with Bryce having that kind of attitude, they're able to open things up in the offense. And if you look at it, Bryce is really working with the same set of people. I mean, they brought the entire offensive line back intact, turnkey, same as last year. Receivers, check. Tight ends, check. I mean, Tommy Trimble's back to work with J.T. Sanders. Our old friend Ian Thomas is now a Raider. Best of luck to Ian. But other than that, all of those are the same. And you swapped out Miles Sanders for Rico Dowdle,
right,
and brought in a 1,000-yard back to pair with Chuba Hubbard in the backfield. So there is a consistency about this offense and gives you a place to build from, which kind of allows you to have that defensive draft like we talked about previously.
I've always heard, too, with quarterbacks that the biggest jump quarterbacks take in college and the NFL is the summer between their second and their third year. Because they've now had 2 off seasons under their belt. They've had a rookie season, which is usually wide-eyed, a season where they see things actually start to come together. And so that summer between their second and third years when they can take the biggest jump. And then you also have the summer between your first and second year in this offense. Coaches have had a year under their belt to see what works, what doesn't. And so I'm not going to get out here and make any predictions, but I think it's going to be perhaps a noticeable difference in the comfort level of how this offense practices, maybe even as early as that Monday, the 21st.
Yeah. And you can just tell, I mean, you can sense from Bryce, there is a comfortability, for lack of a better word, in him this offseason. I could see it at the Super Bowl when we were down in New Orleans and he was doing Radio Row. The simple fact that Bryce was doing Radio Row is step one, but just seeing how at ease he was and as comfortable in his own skin was kind of one of the eye-openers. And that comfort with his surroundings, with the offense, with the things Dave Canales was asking him to do was evident as last year went along. So it's going to be interesting to see how they build and develop on that over the course of this season.
Yeah, we're excited to see it. And then, of course, they'll roll right from those off-season workouts into draft.
Yeah.
So, things don't slow down.
No, they do not. Now, of course, we have not covered the biggest news of the week, of course, and that is the signing of one Colin Granger, baby. He is America's tight end all of a sudden. Former basketball player at Ohio U, Western Carolina.
He was a basketball player a month ago.
That's right. And you talked to him the other day. I think this story is so cool because this guy practically came out of nowhere and suddenly has an NFL contract.
Yeah, he does. George Fant, another friend of the program, a guy that a lot of these Panthers offensive coaches, general manager, drafted, or not drafted, I'm sorry, they signed him as an undrafted free agent, but a guy a lot of these coaches are familiar with. He also made that transition from basketball to football. He was at Western Kentucky, played there for 4 years for the Hilltoppers. Whole time he was there, football coaches asked him to join the football team. He never did, and then realized he might have a little bit more of a steady future with football than he would playing European basketball. By that point, he was married. He had a kid. So he played, for 5 minutes in a bag of chips on the Hilltoppers football team with his 5th year of eligibility. Had such an impressive pro day. There were a bunch of scouts there to see Tyler Higbee, and it was George Fant who ended up pulling a lot of their attention. Such an impressive pro day. Seattle signed him. Pat McPherson was the tight end coach at Seattle. He's, of course, now the tight ends coach here. He called their GM. There's some of their other scouts. Was like, check this guy out. They signed him based purely off that pro day. And by the 5th game of his rookie season, they converted him to offensive line. He was the starting left tackle for the Seattle Seahawks. A guy that ended up being a starter for a while, was used as a hybrid tight end. Dave Canales was familiar with him. All of that to say, George knew it could be done. I mean, Jimmy Graham's done it. He's seen other people do it. And so he decided to start this program, and this was his first year where he finds these guys that have certain basketball skills that might not be transferable to a long-term basketball career, but have these certain skills that could be transferable to football. And he dug up Colin Granger out of Coastal Carolina.
Yeah.
And Colin moved into George Fant's house, I think, on March 6th. And by April 7th, he had signed an NFL contract. They put together a workout with about 5 or 6 teams showed up, including the Panthers.
Yeah.
Again, a lot of trust in George and what he was preaching, what he's developing. Got down there and realized, I mean, this guy's 6'8", 240, I think. 235, 240.
He's a big boy.
He is a big boy.
And he can move. And
I was standing in the hallway the other day talking to Pat McPherson, and Colin was standing right there. And Todd Wash walked by and kind of just looked up because he had to look up at him and kind of stopped and looked up. And Pat was like, "You can't have him, Todd. You can't have him. He's mine."
That's funny. And it is a cool story. If you haven't read Kassidy's story about Colin Granger, where she talked to Colin and George Fant about this, I highly recommend it, Panthers.com. Basically, George Fant slid up in this man's DMs and offered him a chance to work out. And Colin, once he Googled George Fant and realized that this may actually be legit, went along. But such a cool story. I think it's incumbent upon us to say Colin Granger is an extreme long shot to make this team. This is let's see what we can do with
kick the tires on this
raw lump of clay. Can we mold this into something we can use? And I mean, in a situation like that, it's, anything you get out of him coming down the road is a bonus, but you've seen stories like that before. I mean, Chris Manhertz, former Panther, was a college basketball player at Canisius, the only football experience he had was playing Madden. He's now going into NFL season 10. So it can happen. It's not exceedingly likely, but that's the time of year.
It requires a certain kind of athlete to make it happen.
You're signing a prospect, for a 90-man roster, and let's see what happens. It's no risk, potentially some degree of reward, but it's that time of year. We are going to shift. I mean, the next time we do this is going to be all draft all the time, but we got a little bit of time to mess around a little bit. It's Masters Week, I understand. Many people are excited about that. It's not really my deal.
You don't sit down and watch the Masters?
No, I don't sit down and watch golf routinely. Yeah. Golf on TV to me is kind of somewhat less exciting than watching paint dry or grass grow.
I'm not usually a golf if golf's on, that means I'm taking a good nap. But Masters, the moving day, Masters Sunday, Masters Sunday always delivers. There's always drama. There's always excitement. I'll never forget where I was watching Bubba pop that little ball out of the woods in the pine straw. As someone who grew up in Central Alabama, I know how slick pine straw is. I still don't know how he got that ball out onto the green. I mean, things like Tiger coming back and winning a couple of years ago. There's so many I can't even think of them all. Masters Sunday always delivers. My favorite part of watching it, and this is something I feel like you as a proud curmudgeon would appreciate, is they're not allowed to have phones at Augusta. And so when you watch the Masters, especially on Masters Sunday, when, Rory hits a shot that actually keeps them in contention for a little while, and everyone is completely in the moment.
Yeah.
And that's always fun to watch.
That's pretty cool. I remember the first time I ever experienced that. I took my son when NBA All-Star Game was here this week and Chappelle came. I took my son to that concert, and that was the first time I went into an event where they said, put your phone in this locked bag. We'll unlock it for you later. And I was like, I love this.
Yeah.
This is like freedom for me.
Right.
So 2 hours without a cell phone? Tell me more. But no, it's, I'm pro azalea. I'm pro egg salad. I'm pro...
most Waffle Houses per capita in the country as well.
All good things, all things I can get behind. I also like the idea of the Champions Dinner. Whoever wins the year before gets to pick the menu. What would be your Champions Dinner meal when
I brought
you win
this
the
subject
Masters?
up 30 minutes ago, and now I haven't even thought about what it would be. I think I would go with a steak. Some really, really good, garlic mashed potatoes, maybe sweet potato casserole, which I know doesn't necessarily go with those things, and you've already got mashed potatoes, but I love sweet potato casserole. Some really well-done green beans, key lime pie or maybe tiramisu. I guess the world is my oyster, but we wouldn't have oysters.
But no oysters?
But no oysters.
You don't like oysters?
I don't, and I grew up in the oyster capital of the world.
Which is
Mobile, Alabama.
Which is strange. I grew up in North Carolina. I guess if I was going to do this, I would serve barbecue, vinegar-based sauce, Eastern North Carolina style, of course.
I think you'd be obligated to.
I think for appetizers, though, what I would serve North Carolina hot dogs.
Really?
Hot dogs with chili,
You can do
slaw, mustard, onions. 4 ingredients, that's it.
The slaw makes it sound like a Chicago dog.
Nah, coleslaw, chili, mustard, onion. That's the North Carolina style.
Okay.
You can't find it. There's a shrinking universe of places to find good dogs like that. Anybody's got any recommendations, I will happily receive them. We will go through hot dog recommendations. We will get into the draft a little more heavily. We will talk about God knows what, maybe basketball again, the next time we meet on the Happy Half Hour.
Elf Beauty is a huge success story. But did you know they believe their success is in part due to the diversity of their board? And the data backs them up. The Not So White Paper, created in collaboration with North Carolina A&T, connects the dots between diverse corporate boards and positive results, which can include a higher return on equity, better price-to-earnings ratios, and even fewer discrimination lawsuits. Read it yourself at elfbeauty.com/notsowhitepaper.
Are you fumbling when it comes to getting a confident clean to your end zone? Make the right play. Call an audible and switch from dry toilet paper to wet, extra-large Dude Wipes. Why? It's simple. Wetter just cleans better. Dude Wipes are wet and extra-large, so they clear, never smear your rear. So when you go for 2, be sure to bring the #1 product in clean. Dude Wipes, the GOAT of cleaning your keister. Available on Amazon and at major retailers nationwide. Dude Wipes, best clean, pants down.